So I talked about getting above life, and that's pretty much what enlightenment really is. Here, I'm just giving you some of the describing some of the perceptions of what that would be like. Like I said, because most people, people that say they're enlightened or whatever, they're not enlightened. People just toss around that word, and like people will do. And again, when something becomes popular, it's not. Because I seen Jim Carrey. He went on about some spiel about how everything's artificial. He was talking about some interview he did. I forgot what he said. Are you really there? Right. And it sounds like he's going there, like he understands. But truthfully, you and I know, for people who can really get into this information, he's not really pointing there. His is more like that a pop enlightenment 101. But that goes around because it's becoming a little too popular. Um, but of course, because it is again about if you're enlightened, this means you're sort of like the sun over the earth in a sense. That's why they have those giant statues. Also, those imposing statues. It drives home a point. The consciousness can actually be. It can actually supersede, uh, tower over in a sense what you call life, as far as and it's a app perception as they call it. And this again is due to the process of what everyone calls enlightenment. But again, nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about. I spoke about this in the Hermes video, again, and also embryonic breathing, how you reconnect to the origin. Now, I mean the origin, which is twice removed from the material and the subtle energy of this flat realm system. It's twice removed, or it's twice removed from the material, but it's once removed from the subtle material and the psychic material, not material, but the psychic elements of this flat earth realm. So that origin energy has a sort of a perspective again. So you got to understand, I'm really giving you guys like some really deep keys or insights. Well, if you believe it, I guess. If you think this is just is a more fantastical fancy, but for people who understand what I'm saying, it's pretty simple. If you can just get it, it makes perfect sense. Because again, we're talking about the energy that gave form, or that generated your form. Now, granted, your physical form, as I would say, is a fucking magical abomination. Yet and still, it clearly shows a skillful design. And so this energy, of course, that pre-exists in a sense, would have to inherently have this, how would you say, knowing, understanding, understanding. This would be the true understanding. This inner energy that generated these forms. And again, when you look at the embryo, you're looking at the navel and the umbilical cord connected to the mother, which actually goes into the respiration. And so that's how you are actually generated through your mother's respiration. At its foundation, of course, also the nutrition, of course, but at its foundation, that's the energy that helps to form what you know as you, basically your body and mind. That energy, of course, like I said, it'll be more potent. It's the source, and that energy would actually be, like I said, above its product, because the source would be above its product in a sense, because the source can always put out more products. And I posted a quote from one of these Taoist dialogues where he said, well, we're going to connect with the creator of things. Now, even at that level, even though to somewhat of gnosis, they would say, well, I don't want to connect to the creator. I want to connect to the primordial. Yet and still, this process in of itself, by becoming one with just the substratum of this, is enough to put you past it in a sense. And that's the problem again, or that's not the problem, but that's why religion would never give anything. But of course, you got to remember also, most people, the common man, as they say, he's pretty vulgar. So they don't really care about this stuff. And that's where a lot of people get lost. That's called misguided enthusiasm, trying to teach the common man this type of stuff, or wanting the common man to wake up. It's never going to happen. It doesn't work like that. This is a different line of consciousness, and this is the mystery. But it's always been on this plane for the few. But again, as they said, and they use the terminology, the creator of things. Again, when you get deeper into the understandings, they don't use that term. They would say the origin, the chaos complete. and they will call this the disruption. But that quote I mentioned again, by reconnecting to the vital breath, by that they mean the breath that regenerated you, in a sense. Um, it originated, of course, around that section of your body. You could correspond again to the inner navel. So that's reconnecting to that using the inner vision, the inner breath, etc. It's a very deep and real process. Very simple if you understand what I'm saying. Um, but what you get from that again is the perspective of that. And so again, that perspective is above life. It's deeper than life. Life is shallow. Life is vain and shallow, and again, transient, transitory. It's like quicksand. So again, it's a product of a potent source. So if you connect with the potent source, become one with it, as far as your subjective being, would actually reconnect with that subtle substance of what you know of as, the things, nature, existence, and again, be in a sense greater than that. But again, we talked about religion and how, again, the vulgar man, the common man does not care for this. This is why they'll always fall for the religion anyway. So this stuff is not necessarily secret. It's just that people don't have the inner questions or the inner, receptivity to it. A lot of times due to conditioning, unfortunately. And, other half is just due to just lack of interest or just apathy. So again, you can't blame the powers that be for people's lack of interest in things that are considered to be occult or a hidden, forbidden knowledge, or you can't really blame that on the powers that be, because by them believing in this external father or punisher or rewarder, they actually, again, this is again why they would be considered to be bewildered human animals, because you're looking for something that really is not there. It's literally not there, and the atheists have the hardest time with this. It's not there, and people go into, well, I feel it. I feel it. Well, if you feel it, then doesn't that point inward and more inwards and towards the core of things? But then you have these like these Christians, etc. Who just from conditioning, whatever. People half believe the shit they say anyway. People don't really believe a damn thing, really. This is just some shit that they say, but they believe in Christianity or whatever. But anyway, so they call all these Eastern practices, as they call them, demonic. Actually, like these vigilant Christians, they call meditation and the chakras and Kundalini. This is all demonic. Look at this statue. Look at this snake. This is the serpent. They don't know that everything has been inverted. But again, for the Christians who say, well, I feel it inside of me, well, you got to get to the core. So that's having to do with that meditation. But of course, it's getting more accepted into this culture, of course. But more so as yoga and breathing, more so than actual yoga and yogic alchemy. So that understanding, of course, will never be popular. And again, those are the common people, essentially. Even the mediocre would still be considered to be, in this context of this understanding, they would still be commoners. And again, they would be considered to be bewildered human animals because it's not there, clearly. And to see it out there would make you a slave. It's like you're asking to be this slave. When you're already in a sort of animal-like condition. Your foundational and basic condition is that of basically a wretched beast. Essentially, all these governments and stuff, this shit can go quick. I mean, anything breaks down. I mean, you could have temporary breakdowns, and that'll show you, people's true nature as far as how they're going to react initially to the trauma of realizing that they don't have any resources. And then you'll see, of course, you're still in the same condition as, again, like a wretched beast. But not only that, you're actually looking for something up there to guide you through this, or actually that wants you in this. So you're looked at as the animals of the gods, like the cattle of the gods of some sort. Because again, it would have to be in you, and that sounds corny because people say it so much. It's inside of you, but it is inside of you, but again, who the hell are you? Again, is it inside the body? In a sense, but not really. It corresponds to the body. So, anyway, to reconnect to that, Your perception would be enlightened, and then you would see what's really called the darkness of this place, which is really like a dungeon. It's a torture dungeon. You are tortured by the fear of death, the fear of pain and death, or unwarranted pain and death. You are tortured by that, even if it's just hunger. No shelter, stuff like that. You're tortured by that. And so you'll do a lot of things that you wouldn't want to necessarily do. And so they go beyond knowledge, even. It's beyond gathering data, sense data, or by way of sense data, but more so through inner cognition. It goes beyond that, even. So at some point, even though you're scurrying for new information and new YouTube videos, you got to know that it's fruitless. And again, that's why I go over the non-being concept in its relation to what you would call death, to get you to see from that angle. And then you should realize that most of the scurrying you do for information has a lot to do with this fear of or unknowing of what you call death is. You don't know because, of course, you wouldn't know. Of course, you're not an alchemist. But you can know. You can correlate it to life. I mean, you do go into what they call death every night. So, essentially, when you connect to that position or that energy, you actually become God in a sense, as far as your subjectivity. It's godlike. So, and that's blasphemous to people, again, because they want this king of the animals in the sky or some shit to guide them towards slaughter in some palatable way. That's just impossible. So if you just reconnect, because like I said in the atomism videos, things are created from the inside out. I don't think that one day there's some man or woman who came down from the sky and made man out of clay, out of the mud and clay of earth, etc. That makes no sense because we all, of course, start out as embryos. So that cyclical process to our intellect, again, like I said, would be sort of an infinite regress. But we still know that things are created from the inside out. And so this energy must be from the inside out. Makes simple sense. So that would put you again on a godlike level. And this is where you get this whole concept of the gods. They are not literal gods in the sky, but this is they're mythologizing the states or these levels of consciousness and awareness, into these different planes and different characters. But, it's not actual. And in a sense, of course, they would be, again, above life, like gods. So this, of course, would give you or them the ability to, again, see above life. It's sort of like, for any of you who ever been a managers or whatever at the job, like at first you were at the first level, then you got to the second, third level or whatever. When you got higher up, you started to see from a different perspective. And then you really started to see why sometimes, manager acted that way or whatever, because you start to see the employees from a different perspective. Like, damn, they really do need to be sort of, tamed. But you're actually becoming, again, sort of like you get the manager's perspective. Now, again, that's blasphemous to people. That's why this is so-called a cult or whatever. And also that's why it's considered to be demonic to the Christians. Remember, the Christians they're like the cattle. They're like they're looking up in the sky for this king of the animals who is supposedly there to guide you palatably towards slaughter. That's pretty retarded. So that mentality will keep you from, true consciousness, true understanding. And so again, it's mythologized as, well, we're the gods, and then you have these, they make up these warring factions. And so again, this is where you get this concept of life being an illusion, because from the immortal perspective, from that point of view, this is illusory. It's something that, again, comes and goes. It would be like you time lapsing. If you were to time lapse someone's life or the birth and death of generations, you would be able to see how it really is in actuality. Now, of course, your conventional mind is going to rebuttal with, no, it's time. But again, you got to remember the time is part of the what you want to call the illusion, but the fabrication. These apparently sequential events that have no stopping point or starting point. So from the subtle mind's perspective, again, it is just as true to fast forward it as it is to slow it down.
And of course, when we slow it down, then you see that it's dead.
When you speed it up, you can see that it's an illusion.
And of course, that's how you would get to see you're sort of shaking, you're breaking the spell. And this is how you become, you talk about this godlike in consciousness. But again, these are the type of powers you can say that you attain when you reconnect with that energy. And again, this stuff is simple, but it's not. But it's hidden because it's too simple almost. So in actuality, that's also a way that you tame your beast, because of course you're down here to human beast with the urges. But by reconnecting with that, the origin of things, even in this sense, it would put you sort of above it in a sense. It would make you two-headed instead of one-headed, as they say. But it would actually turn you into what they would say is a true man or a true woman or whatever. This is the true adept, not just all this data that you can collect and reformat. It has to be a little. It has to transcend that. Of course, it must. I mean, if you're really into what you say you're into, if you know what you're talking about. So again, the so-called God consciousness, as people would like to call it, is again not you actually being a god, because a god would even the gods are frowned upon in that context. In that mythology, even they say, well, actually those which are really figments of imagination, but they would say actually their condition wouldn't be great either, because guess what? They would say the gods would tremble when Buddha reminded them of their impermanence, saying like, well, damn, they still have to suffer, because even if they want to live, then they don't want to die. That's the paradox of every sentient being. That's the great paradox of your existence. It's self-contradictory, and that causes the tension. So he's like, well, even the gods wouldn't be, really. So even in that sense, of course, like I said, they're reconnecting to the core, which would be the creator of things as you know it, from the energy that put this out or that outputs this and reproduces this. It's of course an impersonal energy, and also again, it goes even further past that. Like I said, that would be considered that state would be considered to be the union of heaven and earth, and you're already like a godlike or whatever. But like I said, that ultimately collapses into oblivion of chaos complete, and then you go into the stage of the unconscious gods. Peace.